There we go. Good evening, good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? Welcome to another evening experience with the African Speaks. I am Ajay, the African, and we're here tonight on and normally it's not Monday nights. Normally it's Tuesdays, but we sat down and said, with August being Garvey month, August being Garvey month, we said we're gonna do something special for the brother in tribute and into honor of the brother. And so I'm sitting in here. Give me a second, real quick. There we go. And so I wanted to do something special. I said we're gonna sit down and we're gonna make this week Wisdom Week, meaning we streaming every day for the first week of August. My community, we do have a an experience of Garvey the whole month, and so I wanted to partake in something that I can actually contribute to. Uh, It's hard for me to spectate. It's hard for me to sit and spectate. But I'm always down to participate in the liberation of Black people. Now, in this space where we sit down and this is Garvey month, we will have individuals sit down and talk about the UNIA and its accomplishments. We want to talk about what this brother did has never been done since the last we seen him on the soil of the United States was 1927. And can you believe that there has been no organization, no Pan African organization, let alone African organization, that equals what he was able to accomplish in the time where technology was extremely limited? Technology was extremely limited. However, he was able to connect, fuse Black people around the globe on a mission of liberation. And in this journey, he always stated, let us make man. Mm. Let us make man. And it comes from the scripture, Genesis 1:27. So God created a man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, one male, one female. He created them. And because throughout his journey, throughout his struggle, he was always trying to get Black people to not just follow, but to walk into a state of leadership and divine sovereignty. If I can get you to remember, I'm not trying to teach you nothing new. I just need you to remember who you were called to be. Divine sovereign beings where there is nothing above you but your relationship with the Most High. And in that relationship and understanding, in that level of consciousness, you create everything. And it wasn't the fact that he was having Black people across the world dream of something they've never had before. No, he was connecting the journey to our history of what we had already done before the engagement of the Eurocentric genotype, before our interactions. But he was having troubles, always having troubles. Let us make man. You have to be sovereign. We have to be able to do on this earth the same way every other man has chosen to do for themselves, meaning govern yourself unto your relationship to the Most High, and that's however you define that. And one of the things that I sat down and after the last event that I was a part of last year with Garvey, I started thinking, how do we fix what didn't work for Garvey? What was the problem that he was having making man sovereign? And so he was always, he was pulling it together. He was working, he was moving, he was inspiring, and he was working on elevating consciousness. But then there are ancient processes that actually work to get us there. He didn't understand what he was dealing with was the spiritual amnesia of the diaspora. That's why he went everywhere and he would travel all over. And he said to himself, where is the black man, the black man's men of big affairs? Where are the men of big affairs in our own community? The ones who are negotiating global movements, and not global movements where your country is dependent upon the financing of a Eurocentric entity, a Eurocentric government. The continent has so many countries in it, the continent of Africa. You don't need to even go outside of your own borders to create. And if you choose to barter or pay or purchase, you can sit down and open your doors and do global transactions where they have no power or no say-so over the government structure. Garvey didn't understand that, hey, I'm dealing with a spiritual amnesia of the entire diaspora. That's how things in Liberia could go wrong, where he's trying to, hey, we're going to come and we're going to build the rubber plants. Everything is made of rubber today. Can you imagine where we would be as a people if that would have sparked off? But then you had individuals who are always in the circle, who are always suffering from that spiritual amnesia. And when we're suffering from that spiritual amnesia, it's hard to get things accomplished. And there was a conversation where he always said, and it was a slogan. We'll say that. A slogan that way he always yelled, Africa for the Africans. Africa for the Africans. And a lot of individuals back then, it was a literal statement. Let's jump on this boat, this cruise line that we got. Let's go home. Let's go home to build. Let's go to the land that is designated for our culture to create. Africa for the Africans. And we would have known or seen it the way what validates the statement of the spiritual amnesia is the fact that even after the deportation, the movement began to die. Africa for the Africans still vibrated throughout the universe. And in today's world, Africa for the Africans is not necessarily because some of us are returning to the motherland, the land that is the birthplace of humanity. But Africa for the Africans became something conscious. Diving deep inside yourself. So where you don't say, I wasn't born in Africa, but Africa was born in me. It was born in me. And in this journey, it was Dr. Wade Nobles. He said, we didn't understand. Black people did not understand until the end of the 50s and going into the 60s what the mark of slavery did. What type of psychological limits was placed on us even when they removed the chains. It took decades of black psychologists to come together. And I believe he has Dr. Wade Nobles has a organization that they started in 60, 63, 68, something like that. The Association of Black Psychologists that started dealing with this journey of traveling from a Eurocentric psychology and spiritual discipline to a black version of psychology, spiritual discipline, to an African sense of spiritual psychology and discipline, to a Pan-African state of spiritual psychology and discipline. You got to travel and go through all those areas to get to your higher self. And in that space, last year, what I started doing, I sat down and said, in my research, my study, and my life journey, I sat down and said, hey, create something and stop being every time I come across information, stop being a gatekeeper. Just start delivering information for free. Just give it away. Why? Because without us working on us and helping us, we can complain, but what does that do? But when you sit down and you said, I want to understand the power of the divine self, the power of the being that I was created to be. Let us make man. Now, I've done 27 chapters. And today's chapter, what we're working on today, is the 28th, which is voice activated. Language of liberation. How everything is energy and everything vibrates at a frequency. But this is when you're activated. Because everybody is creating every minute, every second of the day. But what are you creating and who are you creating from? Now, because we've journeyed 27 chapters in with DaAfrican Speaks, the power of the divine self, we're going to deal with the voice activated, the subject voice activated from a different place. This is from a different place. This is from a place beyond the wombs. This is a language that comes from a place beyond the scars of your mental slavery. Now that's a whole different perception of how to move. Wait a minute. You're trying to tell me I'm not only going to be moving beyond my own personal traumas of my own personal generation, but we're going to move beyond those epigenetic, intergenerational traumas. When you begin to walk and talk from a place where there are no scars. And a lot of people talk like, hey, I'm scarless. That depends. You know, we can look at what you define as purpose. We can look at what you define as freedom. We can look at what you define as love, truth, creation. We can look at what you're creating in regards to legacy and community. If your scars are still there, you know some of the things that you do when you're functioning from your scars versus when you do and creating something when you're functioning from beyond your womb. And that's what Garvey was saying. Let us make man. Let us create a world for ourselves where we are functioning how we were called, how we were created to be. We were the manifestations of divine thought. Let us make ourselves into what we are naturally. And I'm not trying to create you into something that you don't know who you are already. I'm not doing nothing new. We're just allowing you to remember. There we go. We're allowing you to remember. And so having this conversation, the voice activated, you say, wait a minute, we're speaking beyond our scars. And we're going to do this for those who are tuning in for the first time. Those who are tuning in for the first time. Wisdom Week is going to be powerful packed. Because we're going to close out the series, The Power of the Divine Self, by Friday. And so I had stopped this because the new year came in, a whole new vision came, and I started working on the new vision. But now we're going to sit down and I'm going to play catch up with you. If you don't remember, or you haven't been, or haven't seen, or haven't experienced the previous chapters, chapter 1, and we're going to make this quick to get into tonight's lesson. The activated voice, being voice activated. First, you had to understand the source, cosmic energy and creative intelligence. Chapter 2 was the fact that the energy of the source, of the creator, of the Most High is embedded in every animate and inanimate object. Everything in space. There is nothing void from that experience. We talked about the atom particle is when the atom moves. It is the energy that moves the atom back and forth so that it can produce a solid, a liquid, or a gas. The atomic particle, that energy, and the energy of that atom is within you. That atomic bomb energy is all in you. Then we spoke on chapter 3 where we said in the experience of Maya, God created, when you go through the atomic particle, you see God created the world in perfect mathematical symmetry. And he also created you that way. And so I showed on this chapter, what does the world in the Pan-African eye look like when we live in pure balance? And that was the experience of Maya. All of this is before our understanding as a people, before our engagement with the Eurocentric genotype. This is something that is already embedded in your DNA. We're going to get to that. Then we dealt with the melanin, the gift of the gods. Now, when you go through this is science. That chapter was scientifically put together to explain your greatness, because they try to make you feel less than simply because of your color. And that's chapter was actually really big for us. And so take a look at that. Scientifically, it's proven. Then we're here at chapter 5, the motherland connection. In that experience of being, where did he put us? Where did the Creator put us? At the center of Africa. The first people to walk the planet was of an African culture. It was the African genotype. We're able to make millions of different variations of human beings. And then when you're placed there and you're in a place where all your needs are met, that motherland connection, there was nothing you needed. There was no starvation. There was no homelessness. It was just a perfect environment for empires to build, survive, and thrive in relationship to their connection to the Most High. That is, and then you're dealing with herbs. How did they know what herb did what, when, where, and why? Even in the Maya relationship, let your food be your medicine. We had a relationship with the earth. And then I said, what does it look like for a people to have that type of relationship with the earth? That connection. Chapter 6, the vibrations of a people. The dance, the culture, the color, the way of life. African spirituality was based off of the development of that community. And it didn't have to be a religion. Why? It was who they were. It was who they were. The vibrations of a people. How you lived explained who you are. You couldn't just say, I'm a Zulu and then go move to Ashanti. Why? Because the lifestyle, the vibrations were different, but we were a giving people. Artistic expression of consciousness is how we lived. Then you have the vocal utility. This is the physical manifestation of your conversation vocally. The power of your voice, the spoken word, while singing, gospel, humming. Even in that, why they didn't want to write down the secrets of a community, because they knew whispering it to the next generation coming up, that word, when it would hit their minds, would trigger internal and epigenetic memory. Instead of reading it, saying it, and letting it vibrate with the universe. Man, we were a powerful people. We had powerful beginnings. And that's when you start dealing with the secrets of the mystic temple. You know what I mean? What's the mystic temple? You are that mystic temple. The secrets that are all about you. Your DNA. If we knew how great we were before there was any scientific proof to know what this body was capable of. Now, that only happens to a people who are connected. Then we go to wait, let me make sure I'm at the right one. Rivers run deep. This is about the Shakashi records. being able not just to tap into the information that you've learned in this generation, but everything you need to know about what you're supposed to do and produce in your journey in this round is inside of you. You have a library of information that is you can tap into with deep meditation. People, I had a brother reach out to me during one of the last live streams last week. And I admit it, sometimes I don't know where this information comes from. Shakashi Records. When you get that entombed to your spiritual self, not the self that functions from behind the wombs, but the person who got in front of the wombs, you will start getting downloads. And downloads, we get downloads anyway, but the depth of the download is going to sit down and align you to a particular way. We were built this way. That chapter, which explains this is nothing, we are the phenomena. What you see human production as now in terms of what they're producing, stop. We are the phenomena. When they talk about creating medicine, they study the African genotype to create medicine for other people's genotypes. They don't want to study us. They said in order to, one lady, she was she's healing cancer. Now I wish I had the name. I didn't know I was going to say this. She's studying to cure cancer and other illnesses, and she said in order to do that, we have to see what it looks like to be healthy. So she went out to the desert, African desert, and she was dealing with a people and doing their blood samples. Brother looked at her and said, you want to try to find out the reason why I could take one drink of water and run 7 days in the desert and not get thirsty? He said, it's in my blood. They study the blood of Africans, of us, because we are what it looks like when it's time to be healthy. Our illnesses that we have are spiritually driven illnesses because we still exist in that sense of spiritual amnesia. Now, we talk about this hidden treasure, chapter 11. That hidden treasure, it was when the Greeks and the Romans would come over to the motherland and look at the intelligence of the kingdoms in which they were visiting. And it is written in their history that we are dwarfed in understanding compared to the wisdom that they hold. Take a look at that chapter. And they needed to control what we had. When they came in, yes, again, the relationship to the motherland, we were sharing nothing but raw resources because we had enough to feed ourselves. And so in that space, they had to hide the hidden treasure of what it meant to be of African descent. They had to hide that from us in order to control us. And that's where the battles, and we have African history class that we share. Please join it when you can, because you get all that from the African history class. Then you have the power of the divine self, chapter 12. Again, we're solving the equation, the conundrum that Garvey had when he said, let us make man. Whoa. In this chapter, it breaks down the 10 levels of consciousness so that you could see which level and where you rate yourself. Chapter 12. Take a look. And on the lowest form of consciousness is when you have 100% of your reality, of your conscious based on the reality that you see, that you feel, that you touch, and 0% in spirituality. That is the perfect slave. Why? Because there's nothing in me that is great. It's only what I see. And you got to go through, this is a journey. It's a journey. Some of us will get to level 3 and be happy. And very few get to a point where it toddles, because the level 1 is 100% on reality, 0% on spiritual. Level 2 is 90% on reality and 10% spiritual. Level 3 And it keeps going down, and you will have a point where you have a being that is a 0% on basing their consciousness on what they see, and 100% on spirituality. Those are those special beings that have walked this earth, and there's a number of them. You know them. And so we go from there to Sankofa, understanding that we got to go back and pick up what we left. And we all know this. And so into the Sasa, into the wisdom of the old, listening to your ancestors that have gone before you. You can listen to the ancestors who are preparing to come through channels. Go into the Sasa in your mind, in your past, and pull back all that information. In chapter 15, and I did chapter 15 in 2 parts, A Tale of Two Cities. Because when you sat down and you go back through the Sasa, you realize that, of course, and we say it, all humanity came from the African. So that would say that everybody's an African. You can choose and change your culture, but everybody's, by genetics, if you go back far enough, will find an African gene. But in this space, this Tale of Two Cities, when we're trying to get to experience our highest form of self, let us make man. One male, one female. One love, Garvey. The illness that Europeans are going through is the illness of superiority complex. They had to when they realized who we are, and they hid our gifts, our talents. They hid the greatness and said, wait a minute, let's suppress them. Let's oppress them. Let's deny them that level of consciousness and then say that we're great, to the point where they said it so many centuries that they actually believe their own illness. They believe. And so this is A Tale of Two Cities. The route to find, engage, and obtain that spiritual awareness for anything outside of the African genotype is a different road. We're healing from the illness. They declared inferiority. And that is an illness we got to free ourselves from, decondition ourselves from that. They in my community we says DBI, the declaration of it, but then the illness is the ABI, the acceptance of black inferiority. So those are two journeys. This is why when you sit down and we won't too much. If you're following Eurocentric processes to heal, then there's going to be a split, because there's going to be some healing you can't get, because there is a special, they're dealing with the superiority complex. We're dealing with the inferiority complex. So then that's when you get back on the black hand side, understanding who we are as a people, understanding your history, understanding your culture, your traditions, understanding what African dance does, understanding all of it. But you cannot stop there. Living black. It's a difference between living black and living sovereign. So you got to do that on the black hand side, where there is no Caucasian input in this space. Back to what we do. And then you said, we got to get to the black of things. And black is the level of consciousness in which we function. We got to sit down and begin to meditate into the fact that, and we walk through that, our concepts of reality. The concepts of reality that our ancestors shared. Their connection to all things and everything. How you are grateful, you have gratitude for the grass. gratitude for the animals, the water, everything is unified. And that's when we started understanding chapter 17, the unified field of energy. Africans knew this. We didn't just talk it, we felt it. We vibrated on that frequency of that unified energy field where everything is connected. How else do you think that they could read the stars? How'd you know they know about the menstrual cycle of a black woman in tuned? We understand that everything is connected. This is how you can tell something happened and you jump and you don't know what it is, but you know there's something wrong with your child and you need to get there. Unified field. And then we talked about the science of the sacred circle. You can go back so far in the oldest African civilizations, they will have sacred geometry, complete sacred geometry. You will have things there that will sit down and just blow your mind. Wait a minute, how did they know these things? It was embedded in our creation. Let us make man. We are in the image of God. There were divine thoughts that flow through us, that connected us to the environment that was perfectly made for where we are. Then you have 9, walking the tree. And this is the tree of life. And that is the experience. And it is the experience of as above, so below. And when you're dealing with the road, you're dealing with the roots of a tree. Then you and these are the different cycles of life. Then you have the tree stub. From the tree stub, you have the branches. From the branches, you have the leaves. From the leaves, you got the fruit. And then from the fruit, you have seeds. That seed is then planted again. And roots are being developed. This is the cycle of always interacting and moving through life with gaining more and more enlightenment. What? This is what we knew already. This is so when they, and it's funny because it's one Eurocentric brother who goes out and says we're showing you ancient technologies, but they don't want to say African. They don't want to say that the reason why they're getting better in these processes is because it's a science that we created from our understanding with how we connected to the world. See? And from there, 20, the flower, the tree, the chakra. Flower of life is creation. The tree of life is about consciousness. Chakras and energy flowing is about the embodiment of that energy source. All of this comes from us. Let us make man. Now you're dealing with the surfing the wave, where they talk about at the age of 12, a child is trapped in the beta state of thinking. You're in that survival mode and you get stuck. And it's happening really at earlier ages now. But they say by the age of 12, you are addicted to survival mode. And you have to work to get out of it. And that was a part of our spiritual amnesia. If we can keep them functioning from a lower vibrational frequency in their thought processes, they can never harmonize with the greater intelligence and energy, cosmic energy, which is the Most High. You can't get to it. And so we walk through there to give you an understanding of the things that you could do to get to your theta state, to get to your delta state, to get to your gamma, where it's flying. And we said we taught in that where we discussed the fact that kids are born open and ready to flow. And then we went through the pathway to the internal you. Now we went in. I gave you all that information, and now we sit down and said, now let's go through these processes, the exact process of how to get deep into your own level of consciousness. That was what we're here. We got to go from our conscious mind to our preconscious mind to the unconscious mind into that collective consciousness in which we share a direct spiritual, mental, emotional connection with all those who were gone before. That collective consciousness. And you'll see that when you if you get there, you realize all things are interconnected. And I told somebody I came out of it one time and I was just crying because I never had experienced that level of love before. But that's what that does. And then from that point, we say, okay, our eye is open. The eye now is open. What should I be doing? And so we said, once your eye is open and once you start developing that process, going through that tree of life, always dealing with your consciousness, your awareness, and you're going through it, you have to now be mindful of your consumptions, where everything influences your frequency. And we're going to get back into that soon. Then you go deeper, you start getting to those points where you find righteous indignation. I can't believe this was done to us. Not me. Not just yourself, but to us. And everybody you have an engagement with, they are functioning from that amnesia. And you should be able to see it. And there should be some sense of righteous indignation where, hey, I got to do something. But before I do something, I got to make sure that I do that shadow work. That unseen labor inside yourself where you go inside and you deal with your own demons. And that is a process. That's constant. Just because you dealt with one don't mean there's no more. And you continue going until you realize you get to a state of free. And you start seeking divine alignment. Now, wait, Pops, and that's what I call God. I'm beyond, so far beyond. I might be at, in my consciousness where I'm 60%, I'm 50% reality and 60% spiritual. Oh, I just did the scale. I'm 70%. You know what I mean? I'm 70% spiritual and 30% reality. Oh, you start moving into a place where divine alignment is important, and that's what you seek. Not no personal love for life, but alignment where God said, I created you for a reason. You got gifts and talents inside you. I need you to use them and tell the world and tell ourselves, let my people go. You got to go in your own consciousness to say, let my people go. And you got to tell yourself that, let my people go. And so those in that space, we're going in and out of cosmic psychological portals within ourselves. Let us make man, where there is only a sovereign being that exists, so that we can understand what life truly feels like. Let us make man, where there is nothing above us but the Creator. And in order to get to that, you got to get to the kingdom within inside yourself. Let us make man. So you're realizing, wait a minute, this is way more than politics. This is way more than that thing. This is a different form of black power first. Let us make man. And so we come into this state now where we've gone into ourselves. Emotional mastery, right? We've gone through the level of heart architecture when you got heart and mind coherence. And then we move toward that soul purpose where you start hearing things saying that, wait a minute, the skill set belongs not to me, but to the people that I'm called to. Then you get that cosmic unity. You start feeling interconnected with everything that's around you. You walk into that ancestral realm where your ancestors are delivering what you need to exist and insisting and guiding and protecting you to the point where you get to the I am. You're in and out of the portals within inside yourself, going deeper and deeper into the kingdom within inside you. And then when you come out to that point, you get to that version where you're dealing with language as an architecture of consciousness. What? Excuse me? Language as an architecture of consciousness. It's not just verbal. Everybody lives in a language before anybody speaks. You ever walk in a room and watch the room shift because you walked in it? It is something in your walk that gave a language of awareness. Then you sit down and say, okay, your consciousness is grows behind, it's way beyond survival. It goes way beyond survival. So now you're not surviving anymore. You're becoming. When you sit down and you go and you say, you moving day to day. I'm not moving day to day. I am becoming day to day. You look at the world and how you move through it completely different, and then how you interact and you even give advice to people is completely different because you're not doing the language of survival. This is the language of liberation. This is the language of consciousness. And in that space, that consciousness heals everything around you. There is nothing that does not vibrate at a level where your language is a healing experience. It does more than change your life. This new language of vibrations. Before you speak, changes the trajectory of humanity. This is what I call this. I call this to liberate the African diaspora and heal humanity from itself. When you walk into that space where that language shifts, your voice becomes activated. Why? Because the percentage of who you are in the spiritual state is higher. It all changes. It affects how you think. The language of liberation affects how you love, how you create or what you create, how you forgive. That's usually hard for everybody. Having the language to forgive. And that's really one of the most powerful. How to discipline yourself. That's what this was all about. When I heard you need to do a wisdom week for Garvey month, and I sat down and said, okay, that's a lot. A lot of time, a lot of studying, a lot of research, a lot of developing. It's a lot. I got 5 lessons, and we're going to do it because there are no gatekeepers. How you build communities is a language of liberation, how you build them. And it doesn't mean that, when you got an awareness, it's where you stay. No, because sometimes what you're doing only works for the moment in which you're doing it. And because by in next 3 months, world and technology and people are going to shift, you might have to change your approach. Then you talk about how you spend your resources. Whoa. There are straight up spells with black people and money. We got more millionaires in our communities now than ever before, yet there is no major movement for the liberation of our people. So that is the state of black psychology. We still got to get to African psychology to get to, so that then from African psychology moving into Pan-African psychology. That's a journey. How it treats the earth. We talked about that love of the motherland. Wherever we walk, we are on sacred ground. It was created, the earth was created for our existence. So wherever we walk, we can claim. How you respond to conflict changes. Your language, it builds so much. There is nothing separate from the language of liberation. And all this is language as an action. How it imagines tomorrow. That's an action. Everything about your being becomes language. You walk in a room and sit down and somebody walks up to you and say, "Hey, are you sacred being?" Yeah. Thank you. They asked me, "Was you a Babalawo? Use this?" Yeah. And so in that space, as we continue, walking in rooms, changing, it's an action. I told somebody at one time where the pastor came, I said he was late to bless the food. I said, "Y'all get ready." Why? I said, because the man who walks in alignment doesn't have to have a lot of words to say. He said, "Bless the family, bless the food, bless the experience. Let's eat." And they were mad because he said, I said, but he stands in a knowing that I am connected to the Most High, to my ancestors, to the earth. It's a knowing, not a faith, not a belief. It's not a hope. It's a knowing. That person moves different. That person consumes everything different. So when you enter this era, you realize one thing, that all the other chapters feed into the higher chapters. So you need what's lower to understand it to get higher. You just can't jump. It doesn't work that way. And then with that understanding, you realize feeding yourself through the consumption, you realize that you are a living temple of consciousness. You are a living temple of consciousness. And every choice, everything you do is your language. Every detail speaks of your level of consciousness. Your food, how you dress, the music you listen to, let us make man, speaks of how you care for your temple in which you live in, that consciousness in which you're expressing, the books and knowledge that you download. Then consumption is all things. But then again, consumption, even your purchase power, what you buy, what you get, what you take. Be careful. You support what represents your mission. Yeah. Then your appearance. Your appearance, excuse me. You speak though how you present yourself. And some people will dress the game. Some people will dress as though that they are in a higher state of consciousness. But then it's a fad for them. When it's time to forgive, they can't forgive. When you want to listen to the music, it's garbage. Some people do things for the personal accolades. That's not a temple. That's they just gave me another download. A living temple versus a consciousness of slavitude. You have to declare everything that is around you be of a certain frequency, so that the language that you speak and you hear and others hear, and it's before you say Grand Rising, before you ask, how are you doing? Before you say, my apologies. Everything is about your language. And if I ask you today, what is it that you believe that your language is saying? What do you speak? What do you say? Garvey needed us to reach higher than what we did, but he was not clear on how. There are those special individuals where God breaks through the consciousness of the spiritual amnesia to give somebody insight. Garvey was one of them. Nat Turner was one of them. Harriet Tubman was one of them. Jaramogi Baby Ajamin was one of them. Ibrahim Traore is one of them. The temple in which you live in. Where in this space, and I should have changed that, you become not bilingual, multilingual. Because your language is in different areas. And not only that, when you engage other individuals, and I was supposed to change that before the class, forgive me, multilingual. Because you can go and speak to, you listen to those and you see what level of consciousness they're on, and you speak enlightenment according to what they can understand at that particular time. People always want to talk to over people's heads just to show how smart they are. But when your voice activated, your language of liberation makes you multilingual, where you know you come from one consciousness, multiple different levels live in that one consciousness, and we have to elevate everybody to that higher sense of collective consciousness, which is that all. We become multilingual. You'll be able to have what they said with Peter, many persuasive arguments, meaning it don't matter. My tongue, I speak in multiple tongues because there are multiple levels of consciousness. And my tongue can go into whatever level of consciousness you in. Hence, me making it visual so that you could see it. And in that state where you begin to speak all things, you begin to heal as well. And you're understanding as you heal, as you live in the language of liberation, the language of connecting to the Most High, the language in connecting to your ancestors, the language in connecting to the earth, the language into connecting to each one of us. That red, that black, that green. We make it man. Man as in mankind, one male, one female. And when you vibrate where your whole life is a beautiful language, everything around us heals. We understand the sound of healing in our communities, in our schools, with our kids, businesses we create. We're honoring our minds. We're healing our minds, honoring our ancestors, and healing our ancestors as well. When you have children in a state of strong self-awareness, those kids are not past the epigenetic traumas. We build our economies, not waiting for somebody to open a store, create a store. You know, if the grocery store in your neighborhood shut down, where are you getting your food source from? If the water stopped pumping through your house, where are you getting your water from? We got to build our own everything. Raising conscious generations. If you're not pouring what you've learned in your life, not just in your children, because sometimes having children, you go through that hard struggle where, could have did better. And you sit down and say, okay, I've learned from my mistakes, because some of us had kids early. Now the question is, as an elder or someone who is a sage, can you sit down and pour into a younger generation, or are you making money off your wisdom to people your age? Or can you pour into a child that when a child gets this understanding, as that child grows up, that child walks in power? World of Akibaland. We create our own stories. We restore our bodies. We return to our roots. It's nothing but healing when your language is right. When you're living beyond your wombs. If you're still talking about what your mama did, what your daddy did, what your cousins did, what the horrible person did If that's still a conversation, then that means you haven't gotten beyond your wounds yet, and there's a higher elevation for you to get to just be in life, becoming. The art and the science of becoming who you already are. In my community, they call it Kua. Now, after you get to the Pan-African psychology, you go into the art of becoming. Let us make man. Because look, this is how we were created. We were made this way. We are remembering how we were made. So get past those wounds will get you to the point where you begin to remember how we are made and how God gave us everything that we need to vibrate at the right frequency to receive exactly what we need or do what we need to do. Those talent, skills, and gifts, they start coming out to the point where it is and this is what I put together, an ascension language. You are ascending the being in which you are from the physical being into a spiritual being. They keep saying, we're spiritual beings having a physical existence. Yeah, but you're not functioning from a spiritual being yet. You're still functioning from the wombs. But the ascension says, look, all we do is speak life. A liberated consciousness only speaks a higher language. When you talking to someone and all they can rev out is low vibrational frequency conversation, you know that they're not there. You walk in that divine identity. You have that sacred knowledge where you're learning without limits. It's just coming in, coming out. Everybody was always asking me, how will you do this? My question is, how do you not? If you're walking down this lane of understanding what Garvey meant when he said, let us make man. You have holistic wellness. Your kitchen is a healing environment. Your meditation is a healing environment. Aromatherapy, stones, everything yields to that healing environment because you are a living temple. And then you get to that Ubuntu factor. I am because we are. And we are because of the great I am. Not we are because I am. I'm not here because of you. You're not here because of me. I am because we are, because we share the same culture. But we are as a whole is because of the great I am. And in that space is where, and this will come later in another chapter, where my we is singular. My we is us, and that's one. My I is plural. My I is us. Oneness. That's Ubuntu. And then we become stewards of the earth. This is an ascension. Everything is about life. Everything is about life. Living, and not for yourself, not an individual. This journey is not for those who seek to just live life happily. I had a friend of mine who all they talked about was, well, I'm here to experience the goodness of the earth. What goodness? When your people are suffering oppression across the globe, and the only real nation fighting for true sovereignty is the Sahel region. That's a different live stream, y'all. But we have to become stewards of the earth to build, grow, connect. We have trees in the Americas that remember the strange fruit. Now let's vibrate where we building and we're collectively interacting with nature. And then you create innovation. You're turning vision into reality. Words of Akibaland. DaAfrican speaks. Vision into reality. Where God has given you something to produce on behalf of those he sent you to, and you do what you have to do to manifest and create it. I know in my community, PAOCC, we have something, we have a farm project, 5,000 acres. It was a vision of those who came up with it back in the 50s, Jermoja Baby Ajamin. And we have it. Now we have to have a better vision. It's more than just owning it. How do we go about mass producing what it is? Idea for anybody in the church listening, it was a download. Spring water. We got so many wells on that land. Spring water. We need to create our own water company. Then you're doing building for another generation. You know that you can't keep anything that you have. You can't take it with you. So you leave it to what? Those who are going to build that vision. You got to become divine language. Divine language where you speak so loud it is heard everywhere. The Afro spiritual language of life, I called it. Where everything, we become fluent, we become free, we are the life we seek. And it's everything is rooted. It's every people, every culture, every experience is that Pan-African experience where we don't have to say the words. All we have to do is walk the walk. Before the words come out, walk the walk. And if you can walk that walk, when you begin to speak it, that vibration that come out is even heavier. It touches different, moves different, makes you feel different because it's solidified with everything spiritual. You got to be able to walk that walk. And so now, can you imagine? Can you imagine Afro spiritual language of life being formed in our youth? Getting to understanding the vocal utility, then understanding when your voice gets activated and it speaks life, to now you everything that comes about you is about ascension. What type of being can we leave on the planet behind us with this knowing? That's the world of Akibaland. That's our youth program. So for those who are listening and hadn't watched before, this is what we do. Adults have to be deconstructed and then reconstructed. Adults have to be deconstructed. However, kids, all they have to do is be they're formed, they're guided, they're moved to a place of complete understanding. They are raised with the understanding that, look, this is who you are. Before you even go to school, this is who you are. Before you educated outside the experience of anything else, this is who you are. Now go change the world. So I ask you to continue going back into your portals. Find yourself born again. Find yourself, don't stop until you are beyond the wombs, where everything about who you are and everything about what you do is a manifestation of your language. That took me a minute to get beyond my scars and my faults. And I said, I can't stop being me. And then I love me so much. I want you to have that same feeling, to be able to say, I love me so much. I can't stop being what God and who God called. Garvey said, let us make man. And so now in this experience, if, we said anything that agrees with you, yeah, come join the mission. Let's do something together. I'm easy to contact. Join the conversation. Let's have these. Let's have community conversations where we, at the end, we have to dos in the communities in which the conversations are dealt. And bring a child. There is no shape, form, or fashion. There is no IJ without always finding himself in a crowd of children. They said, Dad, the older he gets, the better he gets at just playing. I love the kids. I love knowing that when I leave, there are pieces of me, there are seeds. As I go up and down this tree of life, there are seeds that I've planted that will continue to grow. This is Garvey Week, and we are discussing in the next 4 days what it means to make man. We done with, let me see if I got the next title already set up. I do. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about the birth of a seeker. When your language becomes aligned in all aspects of your life, you will always seek a deeper connection to the Most High. I can't wait because this still is developing in me. The birth of a seeker. Hopefully, I get to experience you listening again. Let's have questions, concerns set up where you listening from on YouTube. Let's interact. I had people as we advertised this was telling me what, their feelings and thanking me. Let's talk. You just went through all the chapters and we caught up. Tomorrow, the birth of a seeker. Can't wait to see you. One love.